The courtroom was quiet, but outside, the global economy was holding its breath. Wall Street traders refreshing their screens, business owners calculating costs, American families wondering why everyday goods keep getting more expensive, all because of one unanswered question. Does Donald Trump actually have the power to impose billions of dollars in tariffs or not? The Supreme Court promised speed. They fast-tracked the case. They heard arguments months ago, and yet, the ruling still hasn't come. Tonight, I'll show you what's really happening behind this delay, why the stakes are massive, and what it could mean for your wallet. Asterisk, last September, the Supreme Court agreed to hear a high-profile dispute over President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on foreign goods. These tariffs aren't small policy tweaks. They involve billions of dollars in trade, penalties that affect everything from electronics to household products. The Trump administration asked the court to move fast, arguing that time was critical. Trump himself described the case as, quote, life or death for our country. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went even further, warning that the United States is on the brink and that delays could trigger economic disruption. The court responded by putting the case on a schedule and holding oral arguments on November 5. That signaled urgency. That signaled importance. But now, months later, no decision. Asterisk, what has happened? So FAR, here's the timeline you need to know. September, the Supreme Court agrees to hear the tariff case unusually fast for a complex economic dispute. November 5, oral arguments take place. Inside the courtroom, justices press both sides hard. According to reports, several sticking points emerged. Questions about presidential authority, congressional oversight, and economic consequences. Still, legal analysts expected a relatively quick ruling because of the fast-track process. Now, global markets are fluctuating. Businesses are delaying decisions. Consumers are bracing for higher prices. And the Supreme Court, silent. That silence is now becoming part of the story. Asterisk, why the court is struggling. So, why the delay? This case isn't just about tariffs. It's about power. Specifically, how much economic authority does a president really have without Congress? If the court sides with Trump, it could dramatically expand executive power over trade policy. If it rules against him, it could sharply limit what future presidents can do during trade disputes or economic emergencies. That's not a small decision. This ruling could reshape how American trade policy works for decades. And inside the court, the justices appear divided, not just politically, but institutionally. They're weighing national security arguments, economic stability concerns, separation of powers, and the precedent this decision would create. That's why this case isn't moving fast, even though the administration begged for speed. Asterisk, while Washington waits, the economy doesn't pause. Markets are already reacting to uncertainty. Importers don't know how to price goods. Retailers don't know what costs are coming next. And consumers, they're stuck in the middle. Tariffs often get framed as punishing foreign countries. But in reality, many of those costs get passed directly to American buyers. That means higher prices at checkout counters, higher costs for small businesses, and tighter household budgets. Every day the ruling is delayed, uncertainty spreads further into the economy. Asterisk, so what are the possible outcomes? Scenario 1. The Supreme Court upholds Trump's authority. That would strengthen presidential control over trade and allow aggressive tariff strategies moving forward. Scenario 2. The court limits that power. That would push trade authority back toward Congress and restrict future executive action. Scenario 3. A narrow ruling resolving this case without setting sweeping precedent. But no matter which path they choose, the political fallout will be massive. This ruling could affect elections, international relations, and America's economic strategy for years. Asterisk, why this matters beyond Trump. This case isn't really about one president. It's about the balance of power in American democracy, who controls economic weapons like tariffs, an elected Congress, or the executive branch acting alone. It's also about transparency. When courts delay high-stakes rulings, uncertainty becomes its own form of damage. Markets panic. Citizens lose clarity. Trust erodes. And that's why this decision, whenever it comes, will echo far beyond trade policy. Asterisk, so here's the real question. Should any president have this level of power over the economy, or should Congress reclaim control? Drop your opinion in the comments. I read them. And if you want real-time updates on this case when the Supreme Court finally breaks its silence, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because when this ruling drops, it's going to shake Washington and your wallet.